Hello everyone, and welcome to this discussion of decisions, adding conditional logic to our Java programs. In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to add conditional operators such as the if statement. We're going to compare numbers and strings. We're going to write statements that include Boolean variables. Do you remember what a Boolean variable was? If you said true or false, you're absolutely correct. It's a primitive data type that can either be true or false. We'll take a look at some testing strategies, and we'll talk about adding logic to test for valid user input. The if statement allows us to test a condition. For example, if you were getting ready to go outside, you might say, if it is raining, put on a raincoat. Sometimes it's necessary to specify a statement to be executed when the condition is not true. This is done using an else statement. For example, if you have a driver's license, you can drive the car. Else, you need to find a ride. In Java, we would write this as if, open parentheses, has driver's license, a Boolean variable, equals true, close parentheses. If that evaluates to true, open curly bracket, system.out.println, you can drive the car, close curly bracket. We see now that we have an else statement here that says else, print out, find a ride. We can document the decision-making process using flowcharts. As the name states, is a chart that describes the flow of logic of a program. Some common symbols that you'll see include the diamond for decision-making. It can either be true or false, the rectangle representing a process, and the circle indicating the end of a program or a termination. Okay, an example of an if statement might be if you read a number from the user, you want to print out whether the number they entered is positive or negative. We've seen before that we declare an object of type scanner, scanner in equals new scanner, system.in. It allows us to read from the console. We assign the value that the user enters into the variable called num, which is defined as an integer, another primitive data type. And here's where we start our conditional operator. We say if num is greater than or equal to 0, we have our curly brackets again, system.out.println, number is positive. Otherwise, print out number is negative. Curly brackets or curly braces, I use those words interchangeably, but they are used to enclose or indicate a block of code which can be either one statement or multiple statements. I want you to note that it's not always necessary to use curly brackets or curly braces in an if statement, but it is recommended that you use it for clarity. But here is an example where you actually don't need to use the curly brackets. If divisor is greater than 0, I only want to do one thing. I want to print out numerator divided by divisor. So the top part shows how you could write the statement using curly brackets. The bottom part shows you how to write it without curly brackets. If divisor greater than 0, system.out.println, numerator divided by divisor. These two things are exactly equivalent. A common mistake that you make when you first start using if statements in a program is to put a semicolon at the end of the statement. We're used to doing that at the end of a statement similar to the period at the end of a sentence. But an if statement actually doesn't end after the condition. In this example, it says if num greater than 0, then I want to do something. I'm not done. I need to go to the next line and see what I'm supposed to do. And in this case, I'm supposed to print out the number is positive. If you accidentally did put the semicolon in there, it would not be a syntax error, it would be a logic error. The program will always print the message, the number is positive. The program actually goes ahead and says if num is greater than 0, great, no problem, good. But then it goes to the next line and goes ahead and prints out the number is positive every time. When adding if statements and if else statements, we use what we call relational operators to allow us to compare two variables or two values. This table shows us the math notation and the Java notation. The first one's fairly simple, greater than. But the next one, when we're writing it in math, a lot of times we'll do greater than or equal as one symbol. We don't have that corresponding symbol on the keyboard or in Java, so we have to do greater than, equal right next to each other. Notice there's no spaces between those two. Then we have less than or equal to. The next one's really important that you notice the difference between the one equal sign in math notation and the two equal signs in Java. In Java, we need to be able to help the computer understand the difference between an assignment and a comparison. And the last thing is in math, we have the equal sign with a line through it indicating not equal. In Java, we have a symbol, the exclamation point, which stands for not. When you put it with the equals, we have not equal. The last part of this initial discussion is operator precedence. I want to make sure you understand that you need to do the math before the comparison because that's what the computer is going to do, parentheses or no parentheses. In this example, it says if num1 greater than num2 times 2. You might think that it's going to compare num1 to num2 first, but that's not the way it works. It would first multiply num2 times 2 and then compare to see if that value, that resulting value, is less than num1. Also note, no semicolon after the if statement, just a reminder. At this point, let's go to NetBeans and actually go through a couple more examples. Let's start this example with one of the ones from the PowerPoint. As you can see, I created a Chapter 3 project, and inside that project I have a package called Chapter 3 and a file called chapter3.java. I've already imported the scanner class, created a scanner object called in. I declared a variable called number. I'm asking the user to enter an integer, and I'm reading that value into my variable number. Now let's check and see if the value that the user entered is greater than or equal to 0. If it is, let's go ahead and do system.out.println and write a message that says the number is positive. If that's not true, we're going to write a message that says system.out.println the number is negative. And we can try this a couple times. You'll notice I did not include curly brackets because I only wanted to execute one statement if it was true and one statement if it was false. I'm going to click on the green arrow to run. When the output window opens up, I'm going to enter in a positive value first and hit enter. It says the number is positive. I'm going to run it again. I can put in a negative number and it says the number is negative. And let's just see what happens when we put in 0. And you can see that 0 is considered positive in this case because I checked to see if number was greater than or equal to 0.